All right, it's now 7 days later. I've got the backs on, so now it's time to make the torsion box. Okay, now it's time to cut the top and bottoms of the torsion box, and I've done a couple of prep things first. I'm going to cut them both at the same time with the circular saw, so I've taken the clamps on all four corners and made sure that this is exactly flush all the way around. The other thing I've done after marking the board where I want it to be cut is I've clamped another piece of wood right here on top of the already 1/2 inch pieces that I've got in place. This board right here will help ensure that tear out will be to a minimum. The circular saw, since it cuts on the upstroke, the underneath side won't get any tear out, so you have to protect the top side since this is going cross grain. As you can see, versus this kind of tear out, that is nothing. Now, for the exact measurements that I'm going to have for my table saw, I'm going to have an 1/8 inch drop from the table saw to the assembly table, so I need to make sure when I cut my grid work that my pieces are exact. That's going to be sandwiched between the two 1/2 inch pieces of plywood. But the hardy board is also going to be on there as well. So that's 1 1/8 inches shy that I need to subtract from the 3 inch thick top.
Now all of these pieces are going to be cut from 3/4 inch ply at 1 15/16 inches wide. Now you always want to pre-drill your holes just to make sure everything is going to line up nice. And here's a little trick. You can use a piece of scrap as a guide to run your glue. Now just go ahead with a couple of clamps and screw everything together, making sure everything is nice and flush on all the edges. Now just take you a square and 11 5/8 from the sidewall on both sides, just run you a line. This will allow you to be able to drill all your holes in a straight line so you can access them from the bottom later.
Now all I've done here is made an 11 1/4 inch spacer that I can set between both the perimeter as well as the interior runner. And I'm going to take this all the way down here to make sure that this thing stays straight as I screw it down.
Now we will make internal grid work the same size as those spacers.
Okay, now with all the grid work in place, we just need to air nail it in. Now I've already got the 1/2 inch top that's going to go on here, cut to the exact same size that the bottom one is. So we're going to go ahead and get that in place and get it screwed down. But before I do that, there's some prep work I need to do. Now with the top on here, I'm not going to be able to see where all of my cross members are at, except for the little nail holes that I have right here in the side. So I'm actually going to take a pencil and mark exactly where these pieces of wood are, directly in the center, so that way whenever I get the 1/2 inch top in place, I'll know exactly where these pieces are at. Now using the lines that I made over here on the sides, I'm just going to take my square here, line it up with those lines, and then start drawing my grid work that I've got. Alright, now with all the lines drawn, time to screw it down. Now since I want this removable, I'm not going to worry about gluing this down. I want to be able to take this thing apart if I need to for transportation if I ever move from this place. Alright, now I overcut this whiteboard because I want it to overhang on the edges, because we're going to run the router all the way around this table to make sure that 1/2 inch piece that we put down as well as this whiteboard is going to be nice and flush for the border trim that we're going to put around it later. Now just clean up any minor mess that router bit may have left. We're just going to take a little bit of sandpaper and just lightly rub over that, because that whiteboard doesn't need much to clean up. kind of do it at an angle downward motion, never go up. Alright, now with a couple of clamps in place with the whiteboard still attached, this will help give us an accurate measurement for the banding of how thick it needs to be. And it looks like it's going to be exactly 3 inches, which is what I was hoping for. Now as you can see, my piece is just past the blade, and since I'm making this table as an assembly table slash outfeed table, I've got plenty of overhang for this really long plank of pine, and my piece will not fall. And you can also see that the drop off of my table saw is only 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I got the skirting pieces cut, they're 3 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead and butt join them just like I did the table saw cabinet because it works just fine once I get it painted over. You can barely see the screws anyway. Alright, now here's a little quick tip. If you notice right here, there's a rounded radius right here that normally you'd clean up with a chisel, but if I did that, I would probably damage my white top, and that's just something I don't want to do. So all I did was take a round over bit in my router, the same radius as that right there, and now when I go to put it in, it matches. And with that piece of whiteboard, tool tray is done. Okay, now it's time to start the painting process. Now because the whiteboard is going on top of here with glue, I need to protect the mounting surface with masking tape and paper to make sure that blue paint doesn't get on this. So just take a little bit of extra prep work before you do your paint. Now to make sure that these are all going to be nice and flat and flush against one another, we're just going to clamp them in place before we screw them all together. Now the only thing left is to attach the cabinets to the top. Alright, with that whiteboard in place, this build is done. However, I've still got a lot to do, don't worry. This thing is not finished. I've got drawers, pull-outs, rigging of my air compressor, and vacuum assembly to be accessed in this tool tray. That's right, I'm going to have access to air and dust collection on this table. It's all going to be incorporated. But I am going to take a week off of building from this project because I need to get busy on my creative birdhouse build. Now if you guys are not aware, Brian Gidney from Summers Woodworking is putting on a creative birdhouse competition. I hope you guys can join me. I'm sorry it took me an extra week to get this done. Been really busy. There's a lot of big changes coming and I'll have more of that on October 1st. So you guys take care. I will see you guys next time.